David, a young millionaire, had always believed he was marrying an unattractive woman through an arranged marriage. But when she removed her veil, he was taken aback by what he saw. The grand dining room of the Whitman estate was filled with the warm glow of the crystal chandelier overhead. The long table, capable of seating 20 people, was perfectly set with fine china and silverware, yet only 3 seats were occupied. David sat at one end of the table, his posture relaxed, but his jaw tense with irritation. Across from him, his father casually sipped wine, exuding calmness, while his mother observed him closely, her hands neatly folded on the table. "This isn't happening," David muttered, breaking the silence. He pushed his untouched steak aside, now cold and unappetizing. "You can't be serious." His father's tone was calm but firm. "David, this isn't a request. It's a decision that has already been made." David leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his dark hair in frustration. "A decision made without me? How generous." "Enough with the sarcasm," his mother snapped. "This isn't just about you. It's about the family, about preserving what we've worked so hard for." David's eyes narrowed. "And the way to preserve it is by marrying me off like it's the 18th century? To a woman I've never even met?" "You'll meet her soon enough," his father replied, setting down his wine glass. "Anna is from a respectable family. This arrangement benefits everyone." David shook his head with a scoff. "A good family, huh? Is that why she hides behind a veil? What's she hiding? A scar? A secret identity?" "Don't be cruel," his mother interjected sharply. "Anna is a private person. She has her reasons and she doesn't owe you an explanation." David shot back. "No, but apparently I owe her a lifetime." His father's voice grew firmer. "You're the heir to this family, David. The Whitmans are vital to our business. This marriage is both a partnership and a union." David let out a dry laugh. "So it's a transaction? Great. Love clearly has no place here." "Don't be dramatic," his mother replied, her voice softening. "We're not asking you to love her. We're asking you to respect her and fulfill your duty." David clenched his fists on the table. "My duty? To marry a stranger and give up any chance of choosing my own future?" "You'll have everything you need, David," his father said calmly, "and so will she." David stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I don't need this," he muttered, his voice simmering with anger. "I don't need her." "You'll meet her tomorrow," his mother said as she also rose from her seat, her voice final. "At dinner. And I expect you to behave like the man we raised you to be." David glared at her, his jaw tight. He said nothing. Instead, he turned and stormed out of the dining room, the weight of their expectations pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. Upstairs in his room, David poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The anger within him was sharp and relentless. An arranged marriage to a woman who wouldn't even show her face. This felt like a cruel joke, a relic of another time. He drank the whiskey in one gulp, the burn doing little to ease his frustration. Tomorrow, he thought bitterly. Tomorrow he would meet Anna and find out what kind of game his parents were playing. One thing was certain, he wasn't going to make it easy for anyone. The following evening, the Whitman estate hummed with quiet activity as the staff prepared for dinner. David entered the formal sitting room, his expression carefully neutral, though his frustration simmered beneath the surface. His father greeted him with a nod, while his mother gave him a tight-lipped smile. "She'll be here shortly," she said, smoothing the fabric of her dress. "Wonderful," David muttered under his breath, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. Moments later, the sound of heels clicking against the polished floor drew their attention. David looked up as a woman entered, escorted by an older man he recognized as one of the Whitman patriarchs. She moved with grace, her posture straight and composed. A long veil covered her face, flowing down to her shoulders, leaving only her strikingly sharp eyes visible. They were an unusual shade of gray, bright and piercing, almost as if they could see right through him. "David," his mother said, stepping forward with a welcoming smile. "This is Anna." Anna inclined her head slightly. Her voice was calm and measured. "It's a pleasure to meet you, David." David hesitated, his gaze fixed on her veil. He extended his hand automatically, though his mind raced. "Likewise," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. The group settled around the dining table, the atmosphere stiff and formal. David found it difficult to focus on the small talk exchanged between their parents. His attention kept drifting back to Anna, her stillness, her measured responses, and most of all, the veil that hid her face. Halfway through dinner, David could no longer suppress his irritation. He put down his fork and turned to Anna, his voice low but pointed. "You don't have to keep that on, you know. No one here is going to judge you." His mother shot him a warning glance, but Anna remained unfazed. Her eyes flicked toward him, calm and steady. "I appreciate your concern," she said softly, "but I prefer to keep it on." David raised an eyebrow. "Why? Are you hiding something?" "David!" his mother hissed, her tone sharp with disapproval. "It's fine," Anna interjected, her voice gentle. "There's no need to make a scene." Without her voice wavering, Anna turned to David, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not hiding anything that matters," she said calmly. "What's under the veil isn't relevant to our arrangement." David leaned back in his chair, his arms crossing over his chest. "Arrangement?" he echoed, his voice laced with disbelief. "That's an interesting word for a marriage." Anna tilted her head slightly, her tone unwavering. "Isn't that what this is? An arrangement? Your parents need an alliance, and my family needs the same. There's no need to complicate it with unnecessary emotions or expectations." Her words hit him like a slap, leaving him momentarily stunned. "So, that's how you see it?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "No love, no compassion, just a business deal?" Anna's gaze never faltered. "Do you believe otherwise?" David opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, he felt a wave of frustration and confusion wash over him. She was so calm, so composed, as though this entire situation didn't bother her at all. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter but still firm. "I want to know who I'm marrying, not just your name or your family. I want to know you." Anna regarded him for a moment before replying. "You will, in time. But for now, all you need to know is that I understand my role in this union. I hope you'll understand yours." Her words struck a nerve in David. He felt his cheeks flush with anger, but before he could respond, Anna's father cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "Perhaps we should move on to dessert," he suggested, his tone light but firm. The rest of the evening passed in a stiff, awkward formality, with David's parents trying to smooth over the tension, while Anna remained as poised and mysterious as ever. When the evening finally ended, David walked Anna and her father to the door. As Anna turned to leave, David couldn't help himself. "Why do you act like this doesn't matter?" he asked, his voice low. Anna paused, her hand resting on the door frame. She turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. "It matters, but not in the way you think." And with that, she stepped into the night, leaving David standing there, his frustration mingling with an undeniable flicker of curiosity that he couldn't quite shake. The day of the wedding arrived with all the grandeur and opulence one would expect from a union between two wealthy families. The venue was a sprawling estate, adorned with fresh flowers and sparkling chandeliers. Guests in designer suits and gowns mingled, exchanging pleasantries and speculations. David stood at the end of the aisle, his posture rigid, his expression betraying his frustration. The ceremony, though extravagant, felt hollow to him, like a stage set for a performance he had no desire to give. When Anna entered, draped in an ornate white gown with a veil that covered her entirely, the room fell silent. Her movements were graceful, her presence commanding, but the veil remained firmly in place, concealing her face. David's jaw tightened as she approached, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes in the room. The hushed murmurs, barely hidden behind polite smiles, reached his ears. "She still won't take it off," someone whispered behind him. "Maybe there's a reason," another voice murmured. The ceremony proceeded with strange formality. Vows exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, and the officiant pronouncing them husband and wife. "You may kiss the bride," he said warmly. David hesitated, glancing at Anna. She inclined her head slightly but made no move to lift her veil. With a resigned sigh, David placed a brief kiss on the fabric covering her cheek. The gesture was brief and distant. Polite applause followed, but David could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken judgments of the guests. The reception was a lavish affair held in a grand ballroom filled with champagne, music, and laughter. Yet, the atmosphere between David and Anna remained cold. They sat side by side at the head table, yet seemed worlds apart. David sipped his drink in silence, his eyes scanning the crowd. He caught snippets of conversation, their words cutting through the celebratory air like shards of glass. Why wouldn't she show her face? Maybe she's hiding something. Can you imagine marrying someone like that just for a business deal? David clenched his jaw, the shame and anger bubbling beneath the surface. He stole a glance at Anna, who remained composed, her posture elegant. She seemed utterly unfazed by the whispers, her veil still firmly in place. When the evening finally came to an end, David and Anna were escorted to the private suite prepared for them. The tension between them was palpable as they entered the room, the door closing softly behind them. David shrugged off his jacket, tossing it onto a nearby chair. He turned to Anna, his frustration finally boiling over. "Are you going to keep that thing on forever?" he demanded, gesturing toward her veil. Anna calmly removed her gloves, placing them neatly on the dresser. "Until I'm ready," she replied evenly. David's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Ready for what? To reveal whatever it is you're hiding? Or are you just enjoying this game you're playing?" Anna turned to face him, her eyes meeting his through the fabric of her veil. "This isn't a game, David, and I'm not hiding anything that matters. Not to you, maybe." David shot back, his voice thick with frustration. "But I'm the one standing here while people whisper about my wife like she's some kind of mystery. Do you have any idea what that's like?" Anna's gaze remained steady. "If their opinions matter more to you than I do, then perhaps you should reconsider what this marriage is about." David's anger faltered, her words striking a nerve he hadn't expected. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "I just want to know the truth, Anna." "Why won't you let me see you?" David asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "When the time is right," she replied simply. "And who decides that?" he challenged, his patience running thin. "I do," Anna answered, her tone unwavering. David stared at her, his frustration and confusion knotting together into something he couldn't untangle. Finally, he turned away, pouring himself a glass of whiskey from the suite's bar. "Fine," he said, his voice clipped. "Keep your secrets, but don't expect me to wait forever." Anna didn't respond. Instead, she sat down at the vanity, removing her earrings with practiced care. Her silence filled the room, heavy and unyielding. David drank his whiskey, the burn doing little to ease the ache in his chest. This wasn't the life he had imagined, and yet, despite his irritation, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Anna than she was letting on. As the night wore on, they retreated to opposite sides of the suite. The distance between them was as vast as ever. But in the quiet moments before sleep, David found himself wondering, again, not for the first time, what lay beneath the veil. The days following their awkward wedding passed in a blur of strange silence and polite distance. David avoided Anna as much as possible, retreating to his office or taking long drives to escape the confines of the mansion. Yet despite his frustration, he couldn't help but notice small things about her. The way she moved through the house, always graceful and composed, or the air of quiet authority she seemed to carry. It was during one of these moments of observation that David stumbled upon an unexpected scene. Late one morning, David was in the sunlit study, sifting through documents for a merger proposal that had hit a roadblock. His frustration mounted as he read and reread the numbers, the deal teetering on the brink of collapse. "Need some help?" Anna's voice broke through his concentration. He looked up, startled to see her standing in the doorway. She wore a simple dress that flowed gracefully over her frame, and, as always, her veil obscured her face. "I didn't realize you were there," he said, his tone clipped. "This isn't exactly your area of expertise." Anna tilted her head slightly, her tone calm. "You might be surprised." Before David could protest, she stepped closer, her presence quiet but commanding. She picked up one of the documents, her gloved fingers skimming over the text. "The issue isn't the numbers," she said after a moment. "It's the phrasing in this clause. It leaves too much ambiguity, which makes the other party hesitant." David frowned, leaning over to see where she was pointing. "You think that's what's holding them back?" "I don't think," she said simply. "I know. Tighten the language, specify the terms, and they'll sign." David stared at her, surprised. "How do you even know that?" Anna set the paper down, her posture relaxed. "I may not be part of your world, but that doesn't mean I'm ignorant of how it works." With that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving David to stare after her. The weight of her words sank in, leaving him with a mixture of admiration and confusion. A few days later, David encountered Anna again in an unexpected setting. He was walking through the garden on his way to the garage when he heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Curious, he paused at the open doorway and peered inside. Anna was standing near the counter, her veil still in place, chatting with the kitchen staff. Her voice was warm and engaging, and the employees seemed genuinely delighted by her presence. "You've outdone yourself with the pastries today, Mrs. Hale," Anna said, her tone sincere. "They look almost too good to eat." Mrs. Hale, the head cook, beamed. "Oh, you flatter me, Mrs. Whitman." "But it's true, isn't it?" Anna continued. "I've been perfecting that recipe for weeks." Anna laughed softly, her hands clasped in front of her. "Well, if you ever need a taste tester, you know where to find me." David watched as the staff responded to Anna with affection and respect, their demeanor relaxed and open. Despite the veil, she had a way of making people feel seen and valued, a trait David hadn't expected. As he turned to leave, he couldn't shake the image of Anna standing there, her warmth and poise completely at odds with the distant, enigmatic figure he had imagined her to be. Over the following weeks, David began to pay closer attention to Anna. Though he would never admit it aloud, he noticed the way she carried herself with quiet dignity, the subtle but thoughtful way she contributed to the household, and the sharp intelligence that surfaced during their rare conversations. One evening during dinner, she asked about his work, her question surprisingly insightful. "How is the merger coming along?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. David hesitated, unsure whether to brush her off or engage. Finally, he set down his fork and sighed. "It's complicated. The other party is still hesitant despite the changes we made." Anna nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps they need more reassurance. Have you considered hosting a meeting here? Sometimes seeing the people behind the business can make all the difference." David blinked, startled by the suggestion. "You think that would work?" "It's worth a try," she said simply. To his surprise, David followed her advice, and the meeting proved successful. The deal closed shortly afterward, leaving David both relieved and bewildered. As the days turned into weeks, David found himself reevaluating his initial assumptions about Anna. She wasn't the aloof, impersonal figure he had imagined. Beneath the veil was a woman of intelligence, kindness, and depth, a woman who seemed to navigate the world with a quiet strength he hadn't expected. Yet, despite everything he had observed, the veil remained an ever-present reminder of the distance between them. Confidence, her words cutting through the room with precision. "The terms in the second clause are still too vague," she said, her voice steady. "It leaves room for misinterpretation. Tighten the language, and it will offer more security to both parties." David watched her, impressed. The way she navigated the conversation, contributing not only with knowledge but also with a quiet authority, was nothing like the distant, mysterious woman he had once thought her to be. The meeting continued with her insights sparking a change in direction, and the executives, who had initially been surprised by her presence, were now focused, listening carefully. Anna's words carried weight, and David couldn't help but notice how the room shifted. There was respect in the way they regarded her, not just as his wife, but as someone capable of holding her own in this business world. After the meeting, David walked her back to her office. The silence between them was comfortable now, no longer charged with the tension it once held. "You were right," he said quietly, his voice thoughtful. "I never gave you the chance to show what you're capable of. I've been blind to the many things you bring to the table." Anna gave him a small smile, but it wasn't without a hint of something deeper, a quiet acknowledgement of the progress they had made. "You're not the only one who had to learn something," she said gently. David's eyes met hers, and for the first time in their marriage, he truly saw her, not just the veil, not just the mystery, but the woman standing before him, strong, capable, and full of depth. And in that moment, he knew that while the veil might still be there, it no longer mattered. What mattered now was the woman behind it, and the future they could build together. Over the following weeks, their relationship began to change. They worked together more closely, their conversations growing from polite exchanges to meaningful discussions about both business and personal matters. The veil remained, but it was no longer a barrier. Instead, it became a symbol of the quiet understanding they were slowly building, an understanding that there was more to her, to them, than appearances. David's initial frustration with the veil faded, replaced by a growing sense of respect and curiosity about Anna. He found himself asking questions, seeking to know more about her thoughts, her past, and her vision for their future. In return, Anna opened up in ways she hadn't before, revealing glimpses of her true self, the person she had always hoped he would see. And though the veil still covered her face, David knew that it was no longer the thing that defined their marriage. What defined it now was the trust they had started to build, one conversation, one step at a time. Sweeping over the room, holding everyone's attention. "I hid my face because I wanted to be seen for who I am, not for how I look. I wanted to be valued for my mind, my character, my contributions, and not reduced to the surface of things." The room remained silent, the weight of her words sinking in. David stood, still processing, as he watched her with a mixture of awe and admiration. Anna had revealed herself not just physically, but in a way that carried so much more depth than he could have anticipated. Her eyes then met his again, her expression softening. "It wasn't about hiding from you, David," she continued, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "It was about showing you that the person you were marrying was not defined by appearances. I wanted to be sure that when you saw me, it was for who I am, not just what you saw." David's heart swelled, understanding now in a way he never had before. The veil had never been a shield. It had been a statement, a way to ensure that the world, and perhaps even he, could see her for more than just a pretty face. And now she was showing him everything she had longed for him to see. For a long moment, the room remained still, and David took a step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have known." Anna smiled softly, a mixture of relief and quiet strength in her gaze. "You weren't the only one who needed to learn, David, but we're here now." The crowd, sensing the intimacy of the moment, began to murmur among themselves, the tension slowly fading into admiration. Anna's presence in the room was undeniable, but more than her beauty, it was her quiet strength and conviction that commanded attention. David reached for her hand, the weight of their journey together apparent in the simple gesture. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "I'll wait for you, Anna, in all the ways you need me to." Anna gave him a smile that spoke volumes. A promise. A beginning. "Thank you," she whispered, as if the words were enough to encapsulate everything they had both gone through. For the first time, David knew they were moving forward together, not as two separate people with hidden parts, but as partners, fully seen, fully understood. And as the evening continued, with music and laughter filling the air once again, David and Anna stood side by side, no longer separated by a veil of mystery, but united in the quiet truth of their shared path ahead. Fondness. "I'm glad you're finally seeing me for who I truly am, David." As they continued to walk through the market, the sounds of laughter and music filling the air, David felt a sense of peace he had never experienced before. There was no mystery left between them, no barriers to cross, no veil to remove. What remained was simply the two of them, fully aware of one another. And that was enough. "I never could have imagined this," David mused, glancing at Anna with admiration, "that the person I was struggling to understand would turn out to be my equal, my partner in every sense." Anna smiled softly, the warmth in her eyes speaking volumes. "We both had our lessons to learn, David, but we got there together, and that's what matters." Their journey had been anything but conventional, filled with misunderstandings, frustration, and walls that had been slowly chipped away. But in the end, they had built something far stronger than either had expected, an understanding that went deeper than mere appearances, a partnership based on trust, patience, and a willingness to grow. As they made their way through the vibrant street market, surrounded by the colors, sounds, and smells of the world, David realized how much he had changed. Not just in how he saw Anna, but in how he saw the world. His eyes had been opened, and now he truly understood that the most important things in life couldn't be seen at first glance. They had to be discovered, nurtured, and appreciated for what they truly were. And with Anna by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that the journey they had taken had already shaped them into something much stronger than they had been before. Together, they were no longer two people trying to fit into an old mold. They were something new, something better. As they continued down the bustling market street, hand in hand, David knew that the road ahead would be filled with even more discoveries. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He was eager to see more, to learn more, and most importantly, to continue loving the woman who had taught him that the most beautiful things in life are the ones you learn to see, not just the ones you look at. What a beautiful and heartfelt conclusion to their journey. The transformation from a marriage based on circumstances to one built on mutual respect, understanding, and love is so inspiring. It's incredible how they both grew individually and together, learning to see beyond the surface and truly appreciating each other for who they are. The way the story wraps up with their success, both in business and in their personal relationship, is a testament to the power of love, patience, and personal growth. This story definitely carries a warm, uplifting message about what true partnership looks like and how we all can learn to see others more deeply. It's a reminder that real connection comes when we choose to grow together, even when the path isn't easy at first.